Most of us have been taught that hormonal birth control regulates your cycle, balances your hormones, and gives you control over your fertility. But what if the story that you were handed about the pill was never the whole truth? What if the hormones you swallow, inject, or implant aren't regulating your cycle at all, but instead shutting it down? And what if the symptoms that you've been wrestling with for years weren't random, but actually connected? This is the part of women's health most women were never told. And today, we're going to change that. Still trusting a system that profits from your sickness? Faith Over Pharma is here to flip the script and help you heal the way God designed. If you've been to a doctor after doctor and still don't have answers, this is your sign to try a different approach. Most mainstream care looks at isolated labs, whereas I look at the whole picture. In my hormone and healing strategies session, we connect the dots between your hormones, symptoms, stress, gut, thyroid, and history so you can finally understand what your body has been trying to say. And instead of leaving with more questions, you'll walk away with a clear, natural, personalized plan that actually makes sense for you. If you're craving clarity, direction, or just someone who truly gets what you're experiencing, this is your next step. You can book your session at susangladstein.com. I am so excited about this episode. I did a ton of research and actually am posting a little bit late, but for decades, we've been handed this story that the pill is what regulates your cycle or balances your hormones and keeps things normal, right? But the reality is actually the opposite. Hormonal birth control doesn't regulate your cycle at all. It actually shuts it down by suppressing your body's natural estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone production to levels that closely resemble menopause. So if your mood changed, your libido tanked, your energy disappeared, or coming off the pill has wrecked your cycle, you're not imagining it. And honestly, it's really no wonder that so many women come off the pill and say, I don't even recognize myself anymore. Because nobody told you what was actually being suppressed. And before the birth control pill ever existed, before Enovid hit shelves in 1960, the science behind it actually began in a completely unexpected place: fertility treatment. Dr. John Rock, the same OBGYN who later helped bring the pill to market, was originally trying to help women get pregnant, not prevent it. Back then, infertility treatment was almost non-existent, so Rock developed this theory that if he could put a woman's body into a temporary hormone-induced state that looked like early pregnancy, something he called pseudo-pregnancy, maybe it would help reset her cycle and make conception more likely afterward. So he began giving his infertility patients very high doses of synthetic estrogen and progesterone to test this idea. And that's where a heartbreaking pattern emerged. These women were desperate for a baby. Many had been trying for years. So when the hormones stopped their periods and their breasts became tender, they felt nauseated, their bodies gave them the exact sensations that they'd been longing for, they believed deeply that they were finally pregnant. And Rock assured them that it was just the medication, but hope is a powerful thing. And when the truth set in, the devastation was crushing. This emotional fallout became Rock's big problem. The thing that he later confessed to biologist Gregory Pincus when they teamed up, because scientifically something important was happening. The hormone combinations were reliably shutting down ovulation, but emotionally, it was breaking women's hearts. And that moment, this very human, very painful discovery is what led Pincus to propose a brand new idea. Build in a monthly break from the hormones so the women would have a withdrawal bleed. Not because the body needed it, not because it was even medically necessary, but because it spared women from assuming that they were pregnant. And that's how the fake period became part of the pill's design. And only after this fertility research, and obviously the emotional fallout that came with it, did the work shift towards creating a contraceptive. Rock and Pincus realized that if these hormones could reliably suppress ovulation, then women could, for the first time in history, have a pharmaceutical way to prevent pregnancy without surgery. Because at that time, the only option was a hysterectomy. When Enovid finally hit the market, it contained 3 to 7 times more synthetic estrogen and 3 to 98 times more synthetic progestin than what's found in today's pills. And it became the first prescription drug ever created to shut down a normal biological function in healthy women. Not to treat disease, not to correct an imbalance, but to stop ovulation, which is a perfectly normal function. This had never been done before. And that one design choice, the fake bleed, is the root of one of the biggest misunderstandings in women's health. The bleed that you have on hormonal birth control is not a period. It is a synthetic, pharmaceutical-induced withdrawal bleed created to make the pill feel natural. And that misunderstanding has shaped how women think about their bodies for decades. I mean, you've probably heard, the pill will regulate your cycle. It balances your hormones. It tricks your body into thinking you're pregnant. I mean, I will give it this. Hormonal contraceptives are extremely effective in preventing pregnancy. But have you ever actually thought about what makes them work so well? All hormonal contraceptives prevent pregnancy by, number 1, interfering with ovulation, number 2, thinning the endometrial lining, which affects implantation, and number 3, changing cervical mucus to block sperm. Your hypothalamus, pituitary gland, and ovaries have to have open communication for ovulation to happen normally. This is your HPO axis. And here's the normal pattern. Your hypothalamus releases a hormone that tells your pituitary to release FSH. FSH stimulates your ovaries to start preparing follicles for ovulation. And then LH surges and triggers ovulation. It is an incredibly detailed and super complicated game of telephone, if you will. When you take hormonal contraceptives, they interrupt that communication. And in many cases, they completely shut down your ovaries and stop you from ovulating altogether. If you were to look at your ovaries on the pill, they often appear inactive, similar to what you'd see in a woman who is in menopause. Now, not all hormonal contraceptives fully suppress ovulation. Some women using progestin-only methods like certain IUDs or the mini pill continue to ovulate, but they still don't have normal menstrual cycles. By definition, all hormonal contraceptives expose women to varying doses of synthetic hormones, often continuously. And every woman on them experiences some degree of HPO axis disruption and hormonal imbalance. And even when ovulation isn't fully suppressed, they obviously have backup mechanisms. Pregnancy can only occur when your endometrial lining is fully developed. Estrogen helps build the lining before ovulation, and progesterone matures it afterwards. And most hormonal contraceptives prevent ovulation, flatten the endometrial lining, and reduce it down to like 2 to 5 millimeters, which is far below the 7 to 10 millimeters that's associated with optimal implantation. So even if fertilization were to occur, implantation becomes extremely unlikely. On top of that, when you're on hormonal birth control, your cervical canal fills with this thick, impenetrable mucus plug that sperm simply cannot swim through. They can't even reach your uterus, fallopian tubes, or ovaries. And together, these three actions give hormonal contraceptives an effectiveness rate of about 99.7% with perfect use and around 92% with typical use in the case of the pill. And to go back to the bleed, it isn't a real period because a real period requires follicle development, ovulation, a luteal phase, progesterone, and a natural drop in hormones. And on the pill, none of this happens. You're not ovulating, you're not making progesterone. The bleed you see is simply a withdrawal bleeding when you stop taking hormones for 3 to 7 days. So women think that they're still cycling, they think they're still balanced and regular, but their natural hormonal system is actually suppressed the entire time. And most doctors never fully explain this, often because they're not taught the full picture themselves. And for women who have low estrogen, it feels like low motivation, flat mood, brain fog, painful sex, dry skin, no cervical mucus, trouble concentrating, low energy, feeling emotionally flat or disconnected. It can be subtle, but it's also life-changing. And progesterone is your hormone that is calm, resilience, good sleep, cycle stability, reduced inflammation, emotional steadiness. Obviously, you need it for fertility and early pregnancy support. So here's the thing. You only make progesterone when you ovulate, but the pill stops ovulation. So goodbye progesterone. And this is why a lot of women develop anxiety, irritability, sleep issues, spotting, PMS, mood instability, which I'm here to say it's not you. It's the suppression of hormones if you have been on the pill. And yes, women need testosterone too. It supports libido, drive, energy, confidence, even your muscle tone, metabolism, and motivation. And hormonal contraceptives lower free testosterone by suppressing that ovarian adrenal production and increasing the sex hormone binding globulin, or SHBG. It's a protein that binds hormones and makes them unavailable. And some studies show SHBG can increase 200 to 400% on the pill. And sometimes it even stays elevated long after you've stopped taking it. So when synthetic hormones suppress testosterone, your libido disappears and women just think, oh, it's just me. And it's not. It's actually physiology. So if you go to the website of almost any major hormonal contraceptive brand, Yaz, Orthotricycline, Implanon, Depo-Provera, Seasonal, you'll see this ominous black box warning. And here in the United States, black box warnings are the strongest warnings the FDA requires. Any drug with a black box warning carries a significant risk of serious or life-threatening adverse effects. Most women are never encouraged to actually read that full page or the PDF. If they did, a lot of them would probably be shocked. But here's the thing. Beyond the big, scary risk, which are clots, stroke, cardiovascular events, there are actually everyday side effects that women are far more likely to experience and almost never warned about. So I encourage you to think of any hormonal contraceptive that you can think of. Go to the website and read for yourself if you haven't before, because it will be quite eye-opening, I am sure. But because your ovarian hormones don't just affect your fertility, they actually affect your entire body emotionally and physically. So when you suppress that normal ovarian function, you don't just prevent pregnancy, you actually impact your sex drive, your mood, your gut flora, your brain, your immune system, your metabolic health, even your partner choice. And that brings me to the side effects that most women never actually connect to the pill. So does a pill mess with your libido? In a word, yes. Women make much less testosterone than men, but the very little that we do make is incredibly important for sexual desire, interest in sex, sexual satisfaction, and lubrication. Low testosterone is linked with low libido, vaginal dryness, and a general lack of sexual interest. And hormonal contraceptives lower testosterone production, increase your SHBG, and reduce your free usable testosterone by an average of around 60%. The wild part? SHBG levels can remain elevated long after discontinuing the pill. So if your sex drive tanked while you've been on hormonal birth control, you're not imagining it. Hormonal contraceptive use is also associated with an increased risk of anxiety and depression, and teenage girls are especially vulnerable. One large study found that girls ages 15 to 19 were 2 to 3 times more likely to be on antidepressants while using hormonal contraceptives compared to non-users. Hormonal contraceptives deplete your B vitamins and interfere with your tryptophan metabolism, which reduces serotonin, which is your feel-good neurotransmitter, and it increases the risk for depressive symptoms. So with such a specific link to mood, why don't most women know this? 2 big reasons. Number 1, there is a clear link in the research between hormonal contraceptives and mood disorders. But number 2, a lot of the research is actually geared towards figuring out how to keep prescribing them anyway. So what gets highlighted is their effectiveness in preventing pregnancy, not the side effects. And if side effects are mentioned, they're usually downplayed as mild or rare. You've heard the commercials, right? But what if the tables were turned? When a woman has an emotional outburst or a depressive episode, we just kind of brush it off, right? As a society is, oh, it's her hormones, or must be that time of the month. But what if men were having those same emotional swings? Did you know that in 2016, there was actually a study in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism that evaluated an injectable contraceptive for men containing synthetic hormones. 320 men were enrolled, and it was extremely effective at reducing sperm count. 20 men dropped out due to side effects, including mood changes, depression, and sexual dysfunction. There's also one death by suicide, which was labeled as not related to the regimen, even though he'd been on it. It was a month after his 3rd dose. But does that sound familiar? Sexual dysfunction, depression, mood changes, changes in libido. Basically, it's the same side effects that women have lived with for decades. So what happened? The trial was actually stopped early. An independent committee determined that the risks outweighed the benefits. So why is it that when men experienced these side effects, the trial was halted? But when women all over the world experience the same thing, it's just considered acceptable. It's a fair question to ask. Here's another wild one. Hormonal contraceptives suppress something called the major histocompatibility complex. These are the genes that influence both how you smell and how you perceive scent in others. When you're cycling naturally, you're more likely to be attracted to a partner whose genes are more diverse from yours, often with more traditionally masculine features. On the pill, women are more likely to choose partners whose genetics are more similar and whose features or traits are perceived as more feminine. There's even some research suggesting a possible link between this and infertility or relationship dissatisfaction later on. So when we talk about the pill, we're not just talking about preventing pregnancy. We're talking about how you feel, how you relate, how you choose, and how your body responds in ways women were actually probably never warned about. So my goal in this podcast is not to shame anyone or to make choices for you. My goal is truly informed consent. I want to equip you with the knowledge and to encourage you to step outside of a system that uses fear oftentimes, or oversimplified paths, or one-size-fits-all solutions without even taking into account your uniqueness. And I know that there's this, big my body, my choice movement. But here's the thing. I believe it should be your choice. But real choice requires real information. So if every woman were fully counseled on the risks and benefits, some would choose to never take them. Some would take them for shorter periods, and others would just choose them just as long. But that's the point. You should get to decide with all of the facts in hand. And for me, freedom is the right to exist as a woman and to cycle naturally, just as God created my body to function. And I can't tell you how many clients I have that have told me that they had no idea how much the pill was affecting them until they stopped. A lot of people describe it as like a haze that finally lifted. So honestly, what if we just called them what they are? Hormone suppressants, or hormone disrupting chemicals, or let's just say chemical castration, which, by the way, Depo-Provera, which is an injectable hormonal contraceptive, is actually been used to chemically castrate sex offenders. And when you think of it that way, it's actually wild that we give women the same medication and act like the long-term side effects are no big deal. And now that I've fully climbed up on my soapbox, hello, welcome. Let's talk about what happens when you stop taking the pill. It's reasonable to assume that shutting down a normal function for years may take time to resume. So if you were put on hormonal contraceptives to help regulate your cycle, you may actually experience a longer delay in the return of normal periods. Combined hormonal contraceptives shrink your vulvar tissues, shrink your ovaries by about 50%, and temporarily lower your AMH and follicle counts. Research shows women who've recently come off of hormonal contraceptives often have lower ovarian reserve markers compared to non-users, smaller ovaries, lower AMH, fewer follicles. There's also a temporary delay in the return of normal fertility, especially in the first 6 months after stopping. And remember, coming off hormonal birth control matters whether you're trying to conceive now or not. I believe you deserve healthy cycles regardless. These medications were never designed to improve your health. They were designed to suppress a normal function. And yet, we've been sold the story that our natural cycles are a problem and that suppression is somehow care. Your body functions best when your cycle is normal and ovulatory. You can only produce optimal levels of estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone when you ovulate regularly. This is the piece almost every woman wishes someone had told her sooner. Not to scare her, but to prepare her. Because here is the truth. Your body has been suppressed, and suppression takes time to recover from. Not forever, just probably longer than anyone tells you. Most women think, I'll stop the pill, my hormones will bounce back next month, and everything will go back to normal. That's not how the female body works. When you stop hormonal birth control, your body has to relearn an entire hormone system that's been turned off. So just know your ovulation when you get off the pill has to wake back up. And depending on the woman, that can take weeks, months, or even up to a year, especially if you had irregular cycles before going on the pill. Ovulation isn't just a switch. It's actually a very complicated and incredible process. And number 2, your natural hormones need to climb again. Estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone have all been suppressed. We've talked about that And when they come back, your estrogen often surges first and your progesterone lags. And your testosterone may take the longest to normalize. And this is why when you get off of the pill, it can feel very emotional. You might have bloating, feel anxious, moody. You might be acne prone because you're having too much or not enough all at once. Your hormones have to recalibrate. They're not actually, misbehaving, which can also make that process of coming off the pill less attractive because it is not fun when you're re-regulating, right? You also have to understand that your liver has been processing synthetic hormones for however long that you've been on birth control. So when you come off, it actually has to release what it's been storing, and it needs to detox any excess estrogen and restore your normal hormone metabolism. So it can give you headaches, skin changes, breast tenderness, obviously irregular cycles, mood swings. This is all just part of physiology doing its thing. Hormonal contraceptives also change the gut more than most people realize. So after stopping, a lot of women experience that bloating. You might have new sensitivities to food, irregular digestion. You might have some inflammation or constipation or even loose stools. You might have some skin flares because your gut is rebalancing and rebuilding its diversity. And obviously, many post-pill symptoms come from nutrient depletion that was masked while you were on synthetic hormones. So that could be low energy, low mood, bad PMS. You might have painful periods, long cycles, spotting, delayed ovulation, headaches, again, low libido. Just understand that that's just part of being nutrient depleted. And your nervous system has to stabilize because synthetic hormones have been acting on your neurotransmitters. So when you stop, your brain has to recalibrate your serotonin, dopamine, GABA, glutamate, and it can show up as anxiety, emotional swings, irritability, brain fog, overwhelm, sensitivity to stress. Again, all of that stuff is a normal response. It is recoverable. You just need to know to expect it. So, how long does this post-pill recovery take? And I'm going to be completely honest with you because I think you deserve the truth. It can take 6 months up to 2 years. And not because healing is necessarily slow, but it's actually because you're restoring an entire hormone system, and that is a process. The good news, you can shorten the recovery window dramatically by supporting your body the right way. With my clients, I use a 4-pillar approach because I feel like it's simple, it's structured, it works. Obviously, in our first pillar, when I'm working with clients, we want to replenish those nutrients. Because hormonal contraceptives deplete your B6, B12, folate, magnesium, zinc, vitamin C, vitamin E, and CoQ10. These are the raw materials that your body needs to ovulate, to produce hormones, to regulate mood, stabilize your blood sugar, detox estrogen, support thyroid health, repair cells, build healthy follicles. So if you're exhausted, your PMS is brutal, if your cycles are long or irregular, if your mood is unpredictable, you're likely depleted in nutrients. So if this is you, some things that I normally recommend to my clients, again, when I'm supplementing with clients, I will look at their blood work to very strategically add to it, but focusing on a high quality B complex, magnesium glycinate or malate, zinc with food, omega-3s, whole food vitamin C, electrolytes, and mineral-rich foods like eggs, beef, liver, oysters, lentils, and leafy greens. You can often feel a shift in energy surprisingly fast when your nutrient stores start to refill. The second pillar is you really want to support natural hormone production. The goal is truly ovulation, not just the bleeding part. ovulation is how you make progesterone, balance estrogen, stabilize your mood, and regulate your cycle. So to do that, I recommend eating protein at every meal. Most women are deficient. Keeping your blood sugar steady, which protein will help with that. Prioritizing your sleep, and reduce super intense workouts, especially in your luteal phase. Also support your thyroid with enough calories and minerals. Track your fertile signs with cervical mucus, OPKs, BBT. Eliminate seed oils and processed foods, and lower your stress load. I mean, this is huge because your body cannot ovulate consistently in survival mode. And all of the things that I just mentioned are hugely, hugely important for your fertility. And so if you're trying to get pregnant and you're not focusing on all of these things already, these are foundations that are absolutely crucial to make yourself more fertile. So my pillar 3 is to restore your gut health. Obviously, we've talked about this. The pill really alters the microbiome. So gut repair is essential in order to have that hormone balance. Some things to do: you could add a probiotic or fermented foods, increase your fiber gradually, lower your inflammatory food intake, consider a glutamine or bone broth if it's tolerated. Glutamine supplement or bone broth. Again, support stress because it really impacts your gut motility. Hydration, this is a huge foundational thing that will just make you feel better, but hydrate properly will help with your gut. And you want to make sure to address constipation, which is huge for estrogen clearance. A happy gut equals happy hormones. And pillar 4 is to really support the liver because your liver has been processing synthetic hormones for however long you've been on birth control. It truly deserves some love. So to do this, make sure you're eating veggies like broccoli, kale, cabbage, cauliflower, even bitter foods like arugula, lemon, ginger. Again, hydration, electrolytes is going to help a lot with this. Dry brushing, sweating in the sauna or through movement is going to be huge to support the liver. Castor oil packs, which by the way, you don't want to use if you're pregnant. Lowering your alcohol intake, and NAC or milk thistle if it's tolerated. All of these things can improve PMS, acne, headaches, and mood stability. And one thing that I've recently added into my practice, which I feel like has been the missing link for a lot of people, and when you consider what, hormonal birth control has suppressed all of these things, your cellular energy, your hormone communication, detoxification, stress, resilience, and repair. I mean, it makes sense that for a lot of women, when they come off of the pill, they really feel like their body is struggling to turn back on. And so for me, adding in phototherapy, because it supports all of these exact systems that hormonal birth control disrupts at the cellular level, was a huge game changer for many of my clients. It helps restore communication, it repairs cells, lowers the inflammation, supports detox, calms the nervous system, improves sleep. It can also support hormone signaling, rebuilding resistance. So for most women who feel stuck after coming off the pill, this is amazing in helping their cells wake it back up. I'll tell you, one of my closest friends had been told that she was, just in menopause at 41. She hadn't had a period since February of 2024. Multiple doctors told her, well, there's nothing you can do. This is just, you're in menopause. Congrats. And I don't want to make any sort of medical claims because the patches don't diagnose or treat anything. I am sharing her experience, her testimony, but she started phototherapy exactly how I told her to. And within a week, her period came back. her body wasn't done. It wasn't going into menopause. It just needed the right kind of support. And this is why phototherapy has become one of the most important tools that I use. It supports every pillar of recovery naturally, gently, and powerfully. So if you're listening right now and you're thinking, okay, this makes so much sense. I think this is a piece I've been missing. I want you to know that you don't have to figure out which patches you need on your own. Phototherapy can feel a bit confusing at first. I can understand that. I have totally geeked out on hours and hours and hours of study on all of the science. And once you kind of understand how it supports your hormones, your energy, your cycles, your healing, it truly is a powerful tool. So if you're curious or you want to know exactly which patches or what protocol you should use to support your body based off of your symptoms, your goals, where you're at in your recovery, I'd love to walk you through it. You can book a free call with me at susangladstein.com/phototherapy. And we'll talk about the whole picture, what you're experiencing, and what I recommend specifically for you. And before we close today, I want to speak to your spirit for just a moment, because here's what I know. God did not design your body to be confusing, chaotic, or impossible to understand. Your body was knit together with intention, with rhythm, with purpose, with divine wisdom. And even if you feel a bit disconnected from that wisdom right now, even if your hormones feel messy or unpredictable, even if you feel betrayed by your body or discouraged by the weight, I want you to hear this. Your body is not the enemy. Your healing is not out of reach. And God has not forgotten you. The same God who created your hormones, your cycle, your nervous system is more than able to restore what has been disrupted. He is a God who rebuilds, renews, and makes things whole. Sometimes it's slower than we want it to be, and sometimes it's quiet, but it's always purposefully. So if you're walking through post-pill recovery or fertility challenges or hormonal imbalance, know this. There is a purpose in this season, even if you can't see it yet. And God is not intimidated by your symptoms. He is not surprised by your struggles. And He is certainly not done writing your story. So, as you take steps to support your hormones and steward your health, remember this truth from Isaiah 58:11. The Lord will guide you continually and satisfy your soul in drought and strengthen your bones, and you shall be like a well-watered garden. That's God's heart for you. Restoration. Not burnout, not confusion, not chaos, but restoration. So if today's episode helped you see your body through a new lens, a lens of truth and not of fear, because that's a lot of what mainstream likes to give to us, please share it with another woman who needs to hear this. I think that women heal faster when they don't feel like they're in isolation. And if you would love support in your recovery, maybe clarity in your fertility or guidance on your hormones, again, you can book a hormone and healing strategy session at susangladstein.com. And no matter what your next step looks like, I want you to remember something that our mainstream medical system rarely tells women. Fear is not from God. Confusion is not from God. And your body was never designed to be a mystery that you have to fight against. The system may have taught you to doubt yourself, to ignore your symptoms, to outsource your intuition, or to believe you're fragile. But that's just not the truth. God is the healer. He is the one who designed your body with wisdom, repair, rhythm, and resilience. And your body is far more capable than you've been led to believe. So whatever you're walking through, hormones, fertility, post-pill chaos, or just feeling disconnected from yourself, know this. Your body can't come back. Your story is not over. And God is not done restoring what's been disrupted. I'm cheering you on, and I'm praying over your healing and your confidence as you step back into the ownership of your health. Thanks for hanging out with me on this episode of Faith Over Pharma. If something stirred in you today, share this with a friend who's ready to stop outsourcing their health and start healing the way God designed. And if you're ready to stop chasing symptoms and start healing at the root, head over to faithoverpharma.org to grab tools, join the movement, or book a free call. Until next time, keep questioning the narrative, protecting your peace, and walking in the truth that your body was made to heal.